I still remember the way that red dress clung to me, like it was made for my body alone. It had been sitting in the back of my closet for months, maybe years, untouched. I'd bought it once on impulse, back when I believed I'd have somewhere to wear it, back when I believed my husband would notice me the way he used to. But life has a way of swallowing you whole. Dinners turned into microwaved leftovers. Conversations turned into silence. And the man I married slowly became a stranger who lived in the same house, always hunched over his phone or claiming late nights at work. That night, though, I needed a reminder that I was still alive. That I wasn't invisible. My best friend had coaxed me out, told me to stop hiding behind jeans and sweaters, told me to put on that dress and remember the woman I used to be. So I slipped it on. Red. Bold. Dangerous. It wasn't just fabric, it felt like a rebellion. A scream against the quiet loneliness of my marriage. When I caught my reflection in the mirror, even I was startled. For the first time in years, I felt like a woman again, not just a roommate, not just a shadow. Walking into the club, I could feel eyes on me. The music thumped in my chest, lights spun across the floor, and for once I wasn't overthinking. I was twirling, laughing, letting go. The kind of letting go that feels reckless and holy all at once. Strangers smiled at me. Some men tried to approach, but I didn't care about them. This wasn't about anyone else. It was about me, finding pieces of myself I thought I'd lost forever. And for those few hours, I was weightless. No bills, no fights, no silence at home. Just me, the red dress, and the rhythm of a night that made me feel like maybe, just maybe, I could still be loved. On the way home, I remember touching my hair, fixing my lipstick, wondering if maybe tonight would be different. If maybe my husband would finally look at me the way he once did. If maybe he'd see me, really see me, and realize he was losing me. But here's the thing. Sometimes life doesn't wait for the perfect moment to break you. Sometimes, while you're out there dancing in your red dress, fate is already stitching a betrayal back home. I thought the real story of that night was the way I felt on that dance floor, free, alive, radiant. But the real story hadn't even begun. Because when I walked through that front door, still glowing from the night, I found a shock waiting for me that would rip the ground out from under everything I thought I knew. When I think back to how it all started unraveling, it wasn't one big fight or some explosive moment. It was the small, quiet things. The way he stopped noticing me. The way his "I love you" turned into a distracted murmur, barely audible over the clicking of his laptop keys. The way intimacy became something scheduled, or worse, avoided altogether. My husband, Daniel, was 32, handsome in that boy-next-door way, the kind of man who once used to pull me close in the kitchen just to slow dance to music only he could hear. But lately, he was a ghost in his own body. He'd come home late, toss his jacket on the couch, and mutter something about work deadlines before shutting himself in the study. No more long talks on the porch. No more laughter spilling into midnight. Just silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. I tried to fix it. I tried new recipes, left little notes, bought lingerie I thought might spark something in him. But the truth? He didn't even notice. Some nights, I'd stand in front of the mirror and wonder if I was disappearing. Not physically, but as a woman, as his partner. It was like I was fading into the wallpaper of his life. That's why, when my best friend Olivia called me that afternoon and begged me to go out with her, I almost said no. I felt guilty even thinking about fun. But Olivia had this stubborn way about her. "You can't keep hiding in that house," she scolded. "Put on that red dress. The one you've never had the guts to wear. Tonight, you're going to remember who you are." The red dress. Just hearing her say it made my stomach twist. I had bought it years ago, thinking Daniel would love it on me. But every time I considered wearing it, I convinced myself it was too much, too bold, too flashy, too unlike the quiet version of me I'd been forced into becoming. That evening, when I slipped it off the hanger, I hesitated. My heart thudded in my chest. Would Daniel roll his eyes? Would he even care? I walked past him as he sat scrolling on his phone, waiting for some kind of reaction. Nothing. Not even a glance. He just muttered, "Don't stay out too late," in a tone so casual, so disinterested, it almost felt rehearsed. Something about his calmness unsettled me. Like he was relieved I was leaving, as though my absence created space for something else. For someone else. But I brushed the thought away. I told myself I was imagining things, letting paranoia poison me. So I grabbed my purse, told Olivia I was on my way, and stepped out the door. If only I had paid closer attention to the way he didn't even look up. If only I had asked myself why his calmness felt so wrong. Because while I was slipping into a night of dancing and freedom, he was already slipping into betrayal. The moment I stepped into that club, it felt like another world. The bass vibrated through my bones, lights flashed in streaks of gold and blue, and bodies moved around me in a blur of rhythm. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't thinking about bills or silence or the way Daniel's eyes had grown so distant. I was thinking about the music, the laughter spilling from Olivia's lips, and the way the red dress shimmered under the neon glow. I danced like I hadn't in years. Not for attention, not for anyone else, but for me. My hips swayed freely, my hair whipped around my shoulders, and every step felt like shedding a layer of the sadness I'd been carrying. People noticed me. Strangers smiled, some tried to strike up conversations, others complimented the dress. But I wasn't looking for validation. I was rediscovering a version of myself I thought had died. At one point, Olivia grabbed my hands and spun me around, laughing, shouting over the music, "See? I told you. You're still her. You're still that girl." And for a fleeting second, I believed her. I felt beautiful. I felt wanted. I felt alive. By the time we left, my cheeks hurt from smiling. In the car ride home, my body was tired but my spirit was glowing. I touched up my lipstick in the rearview mirror and thought, maybe this is it. Maybe tonight will change things. I pictured Daniel looking up as I walked through the door, stunned by the sight of me in this dress. Maybe he'd remember. Maybe he'd see me again. Maybe, for once, he'd fight for us. That hope carried me all the way to the driveway. My heels clicked against the pavement as I hurried to the door, my heart thumping faster than the club's bass ever had. But the second I stepped inside, my hope shattered. The living room lights were on. And there he was, Daniel. Only he wasn't alone. She was sitting on our couch. Her hair damp from a shower, one of his t-shirts draped over her body like it belonged there. Her laugh, familiar, cruelly familiar, hung in the air. It was Claire. My neighbor. The woman whose garden I had complimented just last week. The woman who smiled at me every morning as if we were friends. The red dress that had made me feel powerful now felt like a costume for the fool I had become. My chest tightened. My ears roared. Every part of me burned with rage, heartbreak, disbelief all at once. Daniel's eyes finally landed on me, but not with the awe I'd imagined. Not with love, not even guilt. Just annoyance. Like I had interrupted something. And in that single second, everything, the dance, the glow, the laughter, turned to ash. The scream ripped out of me before I even realized I was making it. A sound so raw, so guttural, it startled even me. My purse hit the floor with a thud as I stormed toward them, words tumbling out like fire. How could you? In our house. On our couch. My voice cracked, shaking with rage. Claire's face flushed crimson as she scrambled to her feet, mumbling something about leaving, but Daniel held up his hand like I've got this. Like this was a minor inconvenience. Like I was the problem. I grabbed the vase off the table and hurled it against the wall, watching it explode into 1,000 glittering shards. My chest heaved, tears stinging my eyes. "Answer me, Daniel." But instead of guilt, instead of remorse, his voice came sharp, defensive. "You were out all night, dressed like that. What did you expect? You've been distant for months. Always nagging, never satisfied. Don't act like you're the victim here." His words hit harder than the sight itself. He was twisting it, making me the villain for daring to want a night out, for daring to feel alive again. I looked down at the red dress. Just hours ago, it had been my armor, my freedom. Now, it felt like a scarlet mark of shame. Like proof of the story he was spinning, that I had somehow invited this, that my laughter and dancing had given him permission to betray me. But deep down, I knew the truth. This didn't start tonight. The way she moved around the house, the casual familiarity of her laugh, the ease with which she wore his shirt, this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't new. Still, I couldn't breathe in that room another second. My hands shook as I grabbed my keys and bolted for the door, Daniel's voice chasing after me, dripping with irritation instead of regret. And just before I left, my eyes caught on something chilling. A pair of slippers tucked neatly by the couch, not mine. A toothbrush peeking from the bathroom counter. Claire hadn't just been visiting. She had moved in. The realization flickered through my rage, but I shoved it aside, too broken to process. Later, I'd understand the weight of what I had seen. But that night, I did the only thing I could do. I ran. I barely slept that night. I curled up on Olivia's couch, still in my red dress, makeup smeared and eyes swollen from crying. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw them, Daniel's hand on Claire's knee, Claire's laugh filling my home, my sanctuary. By morning, the fury had cooled into a heavy, suffocating numbness. I told myself it was a drunken fling, a stupid mistake I'd caught at the worst possible time. That lie was the only thing that kept me breathing. But lies have a way of unraveling fast. The next afternoon, I drove back to the house to grab some things. My hands shook as I slid the key into the lock, half expecting them to still be inside together. The house was quiet, but not empty. Claire's perfume still lingered in the air, flowery, sharp, invasive. And everywhere I looked, there were little signs I had ignored for months. A second coffee mug in the sink, a sweater folded neatly on the armchair. Her shoes lined up by the door, like she lived there. Because she did. The gut punch landed when I opened the bathroom cabinet. 2 toothbrushes, one mine, one Daniel's, and now, a third. Pink. New. Positioned like it belonged. My knees buckled. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a fling. This was a second life. Later, I confronted Olivia, because something about that night gnawed at me. The way she had pushed me to wear the dress, her insistence that I go out, the urgency in her voice. "You deserve to feel beautiful again," she'd said. But when I looked her in the eyes and told her what I had found, she didn't look surprised. She didn't gasp or curse Daniel's name. She just sighed and muttered, "I didn't know how to tell you." That was the final crack. My best friend had known. Maybe not all the details, maybe not how long it had been going on, but enough. Enough to send me out into the night, dressed like a woman reclaiming her power, while my marriage burned behind me. The red dress, the very thing that made me feel alive, had been nothing more than a distraction. While I danced, my world was already crumbling. I wasn't reclaiming myself. I was being set up for the final act of betrayal. And Daniel, he underestimated me. He thought catching him would break me, make me crawl, beg, or shrink into nothing. But he was wrong. Because in that moment, standing in my bathroom staring at that pink toothbrush, I realized something. I didn't lose myself. He lost me. And now, I was done playing the fool in his story. It was time to start writing my own. I still remember the way the red dress shimmered under the lights that night. I thought it was a costume for freedom, for fun, for feeling young again. I didn't know it was the curtain closing on the life I thought I had. When I learned the truth, it almost broke me. But strangely, it also pieced me back together in ways I didn't expect. Because betrayal, as cruel as it is, doesn't just tear down, it forces you to see what was already cracked, already rotting, already waiting to fall apart. That night, when I twirled on the dance floor and laughed until my sides hurt, I thought I was breaking free from my routine. In reality, I was breaking free from a lie. I just didn't know it yet. The red dress became a strange kind of symbol for me. At first, it hurt to look at it. I wanted to burn it, shred it, erase it from memory. But then I realized, the dress wasn't the problem. The betrayal wasn't in the fabric. The betrayal was in the man who couldn't be honest, who couldn't be loyal, who thought I would never be strong enough to walk away. He was wrong. The moment I left him, I stopped being the woman who doubted herself, who stayed quiet when she was suspicious, who tried to convince herself that love could survive without loyalty. I became the woman who understood that respect isn't negotiable, and betrayal is never love, it's cowardice dressed up as passion. The truth is, sometimes betrayal is the cruelest gift. It rips you apart, but in that destruction, it hands you clarity. And clarity is freedom. I don't wear that red dress often anymore, but when I do, I don't see it as a reminder of heartbreak. I see it as proof that I survived. Proof that I danced through the storm and still found a way to rise. Because love without loyalty, that's not love at all. That's an illusion. A pretty picture painted over cracks that were always waiting to show. Now, I know better. I know betrayal hurts, but it also clears the path to self-respect, to peace, to a future where you no longer have to beg someone to choose you. So yes, that night I danced like I was free. And in a way, I was. I just didn't know what I was freeing myself from. And maybe that's the lesson. Sometimes the things that feel like endings are really just the beginning of who we were always meant to be.